Hello and welcome to Talking Pharmaceuticals, an interview series brought to you by Making Pharmaceuticals and Distributing Pharmaceuticals. I'm Victoria Emerton, Conference Director for the events which next take place in April 2025. And in the lead up, I'll be joined by experts from UK Pharma to share insights, opinions and practical advice, providing a fresh perspective on key challenges and opportunities in the industry and to look ahead to their involvement in the events. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Bart Derde, CEO and founder of KCD Ventures and Non-Executive Director of GMP Manufacturing. Bart, it's a delight to talk to you today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Victoria. Lovely to be here. Great pleasure. Thank you.
We're excited to have you at the event in April, and you will be giving a keynote presentation. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. But first of all, could you tell us about your background and why you're going to be coming to Making Pharmaceuticals and Distributing Pharmaceuticals?
Yeah, my background, look, I've had 35 years in supply chain and industry, from working in Unilever through to Reckitt Benckiser, through to GSK, and then had the pleasure of creating Haleon, which was the merger of Pfizer, Novartis and GSK consumer businesses, which then split out and became an independently listed company, the biggest listing on the FTSE in 10 years, actually in a decade. And that was an incredibly profound moment in my career and something I had the pleasure of working on for quite some time. I'm coming to this because I think it's an event where transformation is the name of the game. I think the pharmaceutical industry, and particularly the OTC industry, where I've played a big role in much of my career, is ripe for change. And we'll talk about that in a second. And I would like to present some of the controversial things that I think do need to change in the industry to bring it to relevant for consumers and customers, who are the people that in the end pay for our products and make our lives better.
Well, absolutely. And events are a fantastic forum to bring people together, to have conversations, to spark change, as you say, and to make change. So what's the key topic that you're going to be talking about in your keynote presentation at Distributing Pharmaceuticals?
Yeah, look, I'm going to talk about the world in 2035 and how that impacts the OTC industry particularly. There's been so much transformation in the OTC world in the last 5 years, with the listing of Kenvue, listing of Haleon, the separation of Appella from Sanofi. The industry is in transformation in the way that FMCG was in transformation, I would say, some 20, 30 years ago, and is going through a consolidation phase. And so I think it's a time to talk about, what would be some of the potential futures that industry is going to carve out and create. And I'd like to, put my perspective on how we can form and be part of that future and actually play a stake in it. So that's what the topic of the conversation will be.
Wouldn't it be fantastic if you came back in 10 years' time and we ticked off various things to see how you did?
Oh, we'll see how close we get. That'll be that's a hell of a test, Victoria.
I like a challenge. So what are the key changes that you think will help to transform the POTC industry in the coming years?
Yeah, look, the wonderful thing about what's happened in the industry, particularly in OTC, is a recognition that patients are served by pharmaceutical companies because they're prescription products, and consumers are served by OTC businesses. And consumers behave very differently. They behave where they choose products every day. They are still regulated in the same way, and the regulations are the same. But consumers make a decision every day on shelf or on their home, on the computer, to buy an OTC product. And so the wonderful thing is that the recognition of that difference has led to a whole new industry being formed and separated out from the big pharmaceutical industries. And so I see transformational change in consolidation of that industry, because it's currently very fragmented, particularly the vitamin supplement space. I see a consolidation in the industry. I see an industry that is looking to serve consumers and understand consumers and understand what is it that consumers are looking for to help their healthcare needs. I see a government regulation that is looking for people to take self-care as something that's really important for them. I see government struggling to fund the healthcare industry, struggling to fund people as they get to older life. I see the social demographics of people growing older and in fact, the birth rate in the world declining significantly to way below the 2.1 to keep our population stable. So those demographic changes in society, the industry changes in forming a brand new industry, and the need for governments to have people look after themselves, it makes this an incredibly exciting time for this industry, and a time where those who are going to find ways of competing and winning with consumers through differentiated products, through being agile and lean and genuinely differentiated in their thinking about to serve that need of governments, consumers, and the industry. I think that'll play out in a very interesting way. And so I'd love to talk about that and bring that to life in terms of my perspective. But how we create that future, in fact, is what the topic of conversation is, because we're all here to play a part in that. And that's why coming together at events like this, I think, is a place where we can form and build our opinions and form a stake in what that future looks like.
Well, as you say, you're going to be doing some highly informed crystal ball gazing in your presentation at the event, which I'm really looking forward to. So what do you think that participants will get from attending your presentation? What are they going to take home with them that they can maybe action and work on?
Yeah, I think there are three key themes that particularly in supply chains and in consumer goods that we need to think about. One is, how are consumers going to behave in an AI-driven world? How are consumers going to think about, let's call it traditional pharmaceutical products versus technology that can drive change in the way they think about their health, and how they can improve their health through both technology and traditional pharmaceuticals, and how the industry can transform. So that's one thing I would like to talk about, and I think could be very relevant to everybody. I think the other thing is, how do we think differently about how we manufacture pharmaceuticals and how we bring them to consumers? We have created more and more S&OPs. As we've found problems, we tend to write another S&OP to avoid the problem happening again. Well, there's a guy on the line who can't absorb all these things. So how can we use technology to help them be effective at making relevant products for consumers in a safe and efficacious way, and conforming to regulations which are appropriate and relevant to make sure that the product is relevant for the consumer? And so making our manufacturing processes relevant for the person who's doing the job every day is, I think, really important. And using technology to do it is something I think would be really a relevant conversation. And then the third one is, how do we think business? How do we think about all our stakeholders? And how do we think and transform the pharmaceutical industry to be people who come from supply chain and from operations to impact the broader business, the broader impact on the business and the way we make a difference to the business and to all our stakeholders, including society, including the sustainability of the planet, including people who are local to the plant, including the consumers we serve, including the customers who bring our products to market, including the distributors and the pharmacies who do so. How do we play a role? Because I sometimes think supply chain is there to serve and be subservient to the business as somebody who supplies product. Well, actually, supply chain is at the heart of what we do. You either, when you start a small business, and I've learned this from being in GMP and a non-exec at GMP, you start a small business, there are two things you need to do. One, you need to find somebody who wants to buy your product. Secondly, you need to be able to make the product to sell it to them. And so the core of any business is the manufacturing operation, the ability to supply a product at a cost competitive price, which is efficacious, which is interesting for a consumer. And so we play in supply chain and in the pharmaceutical industry in an incredibly important role. And I think we play an equal stake and equal partner in driving the business to deliver to all our stakeholders. And I'd love to kind of drive that conversation a little further and talk about that in my presentation. So very much looking forward to it, and looking forward to being there, and looking forward to meeting hopefully some of you who are watching this podcast. Thank you. Thanks for the time today.
Fantastic. I think it's going to be an hour very well spent coming to listen to you speaking in Coventry in April. So as Bart said, he will be on the GMP manufacturing stand, which is stand 220, during the show when he's not giving his presentation. And anyone that wants to can come along and have a chat with you about what you're talking about. So your presentation is what will the world look like in 2035 and how might this impact supply chains? But I'm sure you can cover a whole galaxy of other topics as well with folk that want to come along and pick your brains. So attending the exhibition and conference is free. The registration is open at www.makingpharma.com. The programme is also live. And we look forward to seeing you, Bart, your colleagues at GMP Manufacturing and everybody watching this at the Coventry Building Society Arena on the 29th and 30th of April. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for facilitating it, Victoria. Thank you.